Mr. Rothschild, how you doing, sir? Can you tell us what went on at the Bilderberg meeting this year?
Sorry?
Could you tell us what went on at the Bilderberg meeting this year?
I didn't go to that, actually, no.
The Bilderberg? You weren't there?
No.
Not this year. What went on last year?
No, I wasn't there last year.
weren't there last
I think
year?
that was my cousin.
Your cousin was there?
Yeah, I think so. Okay.
Do you have a couple minutes for us, Mr. Rothschild? We have a few additional questions.
I was asking a question inside of, as I was saying that the Federal Reserve was one of these organizations. It's one of these organizations that a lot of people say is a source of inhumane projects all across the world because it's a private bank.
That was started by your family.
No, it's completely untrue. I was asked that earlier. It really isn't true. No.
Jekyll Island? Jekyll Island, 1913, sir? I mean, but sir, just one thing, we could go on about how, your family committed all these acts against society, but we just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy. And that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
the Rothschilds are one of the wealthiest banking families in the world. Their net worth is estimated from $350 billion to $2 trillion, and they own every nation's central bank in the world except for 4: North Korea, Iran, Cuba, and Syria. This royal family has been in banking for hundreds of years. The family's power goes back to times when they weren't even known as the Rothschilds, but instead were named as the Bauer family. Meyer Amschel Bauer was a Jewish German banker who opened his first bank in Frankfurt, Germany. His son Nathan established the London Bank, while his other son Jacob established the Paris Bank in 1811. Soon, the Bauer family changed their name to Rothschild. The name Rothschild means red shield, which could possibly be related to the Rosicrucian order. The Rothschild dynasty began to gain power and wealth across the world. David Icke once wrote, "The Rothschilds were formerly known as the Bauers, one of the most famous occult families in Middle Ages Germany. The Rothschilds moved from Germany to England shortly after changing their name, and Nathan Rothschild continued growing the family's power. The empire soon reached from England, Germany, and France to all the way across the Atlantic and stretched across the world. The Rothschilds are a Jewish banking family, and they adopted the hexagram and Star of David as their family symbol. One thing many researchers will easily stumble upon is the fact that most of these powerful, wealthy banking families are Jewish or have strong ties to Judaism and Zionism. The Rothschilds are heavily embedded with Freemasonry and Zionist agendas. Nathan Rothschild once said, and I quote, "The man who controls Britain's money supply controls the British Empire, and I control the British money supply." The Rothschilds are largely responsible for the Balfour Declaration and the creation of Israel as a nation-state. The Balfour Declaration was addressed to the Rothschilds, specifically Walter Rothschild. Jacob Rothschild has even admitted to Walter Rothschild being a Zionist, and Jacob Rothschild himself is a Jewish Zionist pushing the agenda towards the one world order of Zion.
It's 67 words long, it's 100 years old, and it changed the course of history for the Middle East and the Jewish people. The Balfour Declaration, the expression of the British government's support for a Jewish home in Palestine, was sent by British Foreign Secretary Arthur Balfour to the second Lord Rothschild. I'm here in Buckinghamshire at Waddesdon Manor to speak with the fourth Lord Rothschild about the Balfour Declaration, what it means for Britain, for the Jewish people and the Rothschild family.
The Foreign Office, November the 2nd, 1917. Dear Lord Rothschild, I have much pleasure in conveying to you, on behalf of His Majesty's Government, the following declaration of sympathy with Jewish Zionist aspirations, which has been submitted to and approved by the Cabinet.
So it's possibly the most famous letter in modern Jewish history, and it begins with 3 words: Dear Lord Rothschild. Why was it that this letter was sent by the Foreign Secretary to your great-uncle Walter?
It's an interesting question because he was really interested in ornithology, although he became interested in Zionism. I think the reason was this, that it was primarily a movement from Eastern Europe, but they didn't clarify who was in charge of that movement. And in addition, it was, after all, in Great Britain. So they felt that the Rothschild family should be the one to whom it was addressed. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And Walter was Lord Rothschild, and he was a Zionist. And those really are the background reasons.
So Walter received the Balfour Declaration, and I have a copy here. And I wonder if I could possibly ask you to read it for us.
Yes, indeed. Yeah. I'm going to put on my spectacles to make sure I read it accurately. His Majesty's government view with favour the establishment of Palestine as a national home for the Jewish people, and will use their best endeavours to facilitate the achievement of this object, it being clearly understood that nothing shall be done which may prejudice the civil and religious rights of existing non-Jewish communities in Palestine, or the rights and political status enjoyed by Jews in any other country. I should be grateful if you would bring this declaration to the knowledge of the Zionist Federation. Yours, Arthur Balfour.
And here it is, the Balfour Declaration. What do you feel when you see it here?
I genuinely feel it's one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the Jewish people. If you think it took 3,000 years to get to this, and then you say, how did this miracle happen? It's the most incredible piece of opportunism. I mean, if you think you had an impoverished would-be scientist, Chaim Weizmann, who somehow gets to England, meets a few people, including members of my family, seduces them. He has such great charm and conviction. He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and most of the ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place. I mean, it's so unlikely. Then he's, starts to fight a difficult battle with the British cabinet, and this letter goes through 5 drafts, as you know. And in the end, it comes out as a rather compromising letter. I mean, the essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home, and then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community. But you come back to the big point, which is that this is perhaps the greatest event in Jewish life for thousands of years.
The Rothschilds funded the Carnegies, J.P. Morgan, and the Rockefellers. The Rothschild empire grew when they began controlling Standard Oil. The Rockefellers are one of the wealthiest families that still maintain control in the oil industry. The Rothschild family has funded many wars for covert advantages of the New World Order. For instance, before 9/11 and the Iraq War, Afghanistan, Iraq, Sudan, and Libya's central banks were not under Rothschild control. After 9/11, the United States went to war and invaded all of these countries, leaving them in ruins, with all of their banks under Rothschild control, joining the World Bank. It is clear what the agenda is. The only countries left that are not involved with this one world order are the 4 most hated countries in the world: Iran, Cuba, Syria, and, you guessed it, North Korea. There is propaganda from the mainstream media left and right trying to get the public to hate these nations to justify going to war with them. It's all an illusion to further the agenda of a one world order of Zion.
We just want to let you know the New World Order has no legitimacy, and that we as a people are not afraid, and we are waking up to the robber barons and the big banksters who are looting this economy with the Federal Reserve.
Well,
What do you, I mean, the Rothschilds family did start the federal, they divided Europe first, took over Europe, Napoleon.
Don't exaggerate.
No comment on that, sir?